Nothing quite as satisfying as that original Xbox startup screen. Am I right? It really screamed power. And it had power, and that's what I love about the original Xbox. Hey everybody, I'm the Game Drifter. Welcome to a new video. This year, I'm going to kick off the first part of the year doing buy videos, right? Why you should maybe buy or collect for specific consoles. Today, it's the original Xbox. I love the original Xbox. It's such a fun console to collect for, and there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with it. A lot of good software, even some newer hardware for it that came out recently that I absolutely love. And I also think that since some of the games are backwards compatible with newer Xbox hardware, it makes sense to kind of talk about all of this stuff. And, you know, listen, we all like to have fun with video games, and that's what it's all about. So, to get ahead of things a little bit, because I know I always get these comments in my comment section, I'm a game collector and I love original hardware. That's how I prefer to play my games. If you prefer to emulate or whatever, and that's what you want to do, hey, that's fine. I'm a collector. I love the thrill of the hunt. I love going out there and finding a deal and playing on my original hardware. That's why I do what I do. So hopefully you guys understand. With that being said, in this new year, I'm looking to maybe get to 10,000 subscribers. If you guys like my content, please like the videos and consider subscribing. So let's go ahead and get started. So when it comes to original Xbox hardware, there's a few different things you need to know. First of all, everybody knows the big bulking box, the big black box. That is probably the one that you see most commonly, and that can be found for usually about $100, maybe $120, depending on where you're at. And the first thing I have to say is, if you get one of these, be on the lookout, because newer models of the original Xbox had better DVD players in them. The DVD drives were prone to fail back in some of the earlier models, so just be on the lookout for that. Also, on any Xbox, they have a battery in them that can leak and totally destroy your console. So the best thing to do is to pop that out. Secondly, the second most known console is the Halo original Xbox, and that one can run you close to $300, depending on if you're going to get the controllers with it. But to me, it's worth it. You know, that's the one that I prefer, and I think that if you're a collector, go for that one. But if you're just looking to get into Xbox for the first time, the original one's fine. There's also something of a bit of a newer wireless controller from Retro Fighters, which you see here on the screen as well. And this thing runs about $40 to $50, but it is fantastic, and it's awesome to be able to use a wireless controller with the original Xbox. And I know there were some off-brand wireless ones originally, but this really works wonders. It's amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. It is fantastic. So if you're looking for a fun game, look no further than Crash Nitro Kart. Yes, this game looks amazing on the original Xbox. You can play it with friends, and I think one of the things that's best about it is that it's in the widescreen format already. Not every game was, but I do think that the original Xbox was a bit ahead of its time for a lot of reasons. One, it offered online with a DSL connection right hooked up to the box. It didn't allow for 56K modem, which was cool, and it had a hard drive built in. Also, it supported HD formats to some degree with a 720p output, and I think that's really cool. I think it also might have done 1080i, I don't know for sure, 100% on some TVs or whatever, but the game looks great and it plays great. You know, it's one of those fun games that you can kind of pick up and play. Not everything on this list is exclusive or backwards compatible, so keep that in mind. But this one for sure is a amazing game and one that is highly recommended. Crash Nitro Kart. Plenty of fun to be had here. I absolutely love this game. Give it a try if you're picking up an Xbox. It's going to be awesome. Next up, in keeping with sort of the racing series, is MX Unleashed, which is a really cool game. This was released by THQ back in the day. One of the few backwards compatible original Xbox games, believe it or not. There's not a ton of it, but this game has a lot of really cool controls. It handles very, very well. And, you know, again, this was a later on release for the original Xbox, almost coming at the end of the life cycle, right before the launch of the Xbox 360. But a lot of these ATV games or whatever are something of an interesting story, because we don't see a lot of that stuff these days, right? So if you guys might remember the ATV Off-Road Fury series, which was very highly rated and highly regarded, but this was highly rated and highly regarded as well, and was competition for that series. And like I said, it handles great, it still looks pretty good, it's backwards compatible. Not enough good things to say about it, honestly. It's just a fantastic game to try out for yourself. Next up, a fun game from LucasArts. No, not the game that you might think, but Mercenaries Playground of Destruction. Now, what's cool about this game is it's not only is it a widescreen game, it's also backwards compatible on the newer Xbox consoles, but it's also a game with a lot of destructible environments, and I think that's really cool, especially for the time. When you think about it, the original Xbox and the capabilities that it had, yeah, I mean, I think this was a game that was available elsewhere as well, but just the abilities that the Xbox had, it really made gaming fun and added something extra for people who bought an original Xbox. There was such a power differential between Xbox and like PS2 and GameCube, and a lot of developers really took advantage of that. And I feel like Mercenaries is one of those games that kind of took a massive advantage of that from a graphical standpoint. It looks a lot better on the original Xbox. Definitely worthwhile picking up and playing for sure. Like I said, this is a backwards compatible title, so keep that in mind as well. That always adds to the fun, in my opinion, when you can keep your games multiple generations. Next up, another backwards compatible title, Star Wars Jedi Knight Academy, which I feel like is a fantastic Star Wars game. And not only is it a fantastic Star Wars game, but it is just a fantastic game in general. You can play this game in first or third person, obviously set in the Star Wars universe. Lots of different lightsabers and force powers and things like that. Like, the cool thing that I like about this game is the fact that it sort of takes Star Wars where a lot of us thought it would be, which is, going to Luke's academy to train to be a Jedi. And, I'm maybe a little bit of a disgruntled Star Wars fan with the prequels. I love those. I like the original Star Wars movies. But I wasn't a fan of the sequels. I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of you. I refuse to even acknowledge those movies. But this game, really awesome, really fun, and more in line with what I think many of us expected a Star Wars movie sequel to be. So absolutely give it a try. One of the things I like about the original Xbox is the varied games that they had, a lot of different types of games. Advent Rising is a fun game. They try to do something different in the sci-fi genre. I'm not sure if it landed for most people, but for me, I think it's definitely an interesting game, and it's a game that is backwards compatible. Like I mentioned earlier, not every game on this list is going to be backwards compatible. I already have backwards compatible lists on my channel, and I think this game might even be on one of those, but overall, I just feel like it is such a fun game and such a different game that it doesn't get enough credit for what it's trying to do. So for me, I really, really enjoy the fact that it was able to, do something special, do something a little bit different. And you know what I mean? That's something that I feel like most people don't even realize that this game exists. This game was originally supposed to be the start of a trilogy, and the fact that that it's not, it kind of still bugs me. But still a fun game in and of itself and a good experience. Xbox had a lot of really cool platformers, and VooDoo Vince is right up there for me. Now, obviously, this is a game that is quite fun. Quite different, was actually a console exclusive. I believe they did a remaster of this later on the Xbox One you might be able to pick up. I think it was maybe only a digital only remaster though, so keep that in mind if you're looking for stuff. But yeah, this is a lot of fun playing as a voodoo doll, something of a little bit of a different take on the genre, but classic platforming. It's not a game that's extremely hard, but it is a game that is pretty rewarding when you can actually get through some of this stuff. There's a little bit of a difficulty spike on maybe a couple of the levels, but overall just a blast to play through the game, a very fun fun character and, you know, an interesting storyline that probably wouldn't get made nowadays. But, you know, I think that's the great thing about some of these older games, is that we're able to play these games that probably wouldn't exist nowadays. And that's something that I look at as a cool thing, to be able to go back and experience these amazingly fun games. Next up, speaking of like platformers, is Psychonauts, which is an unbelievable game. And once again, this is a backwards compatible title, but don't let that stop you. I mean, there's also Psychonauts 2 that's available if you haven't played that. But this first game is fun in a bun. Honestly, just a really underrated game that came out. And believe it or not, this game could have been an exclusive to Xbox, but at the time, Microsoft turned it down to be exclusive and didn't want to fund it because various reasons. They had multiple games, mascot type games that are platformers already coming out or about to come out. I think it was like Stubbs the Zombies, there was VooDoo Vince, there was Blinks, so they already had what they felt was a good amount of mascot games, and so they turned it down. But luckily the game got made anyway, and came out, and it was such a fun game, such a great game to play as well. And if you pick it up, trust me, you won't want to put it down. It's just that fun of a game, and it's just one of the things that I love about games back in the day, is the fun took precedent over everything else. Before Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2, there was Red Dead Revolver, sort of a loose prequel to those games, or it was actually the first in those games, and then it kind of went around to different various rock stars and different kind of things involved. But the main thing I kind of want to get across is this is a fun game to play on the Xbox. And not only is it a fun game to play on Xbox, but thankfully it's also backwards compatible, and it's like, I know probably some of these have been listed in my backwards compatible videos that I've done for the original Xbox, but never in the same video together. And just in general, if you're looking to buy an original Xbox, why not buy some of the games that you can still play, right? Like, I think that's something that I like to do when I do these videos, is people want the most value for their money, and this game is under $10, so definitely well worth picking up and playing through it, especially if you enjoyed Red Dead. Obviously it's not on that quality as Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead 2, but still a pretty fun game, and an interesting game to play through on the original Xbox. Next up is Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. It's so interesting when you go back and play some of these games. I remember being in the mindset when I originally played this game, like, wow, you don't really see stuff like that. It's pushing the hardware, all that kind of stuff, because, the whole bullet time thing was new back then. Like, all this stuff was fresh. If you look at this stuff with fresh eyes, I think you get a better appreciation for it, instead of, oh, that's outdated, or, oh, man, that's crazy. For me, Max Payne 2, which, by the way, this game's backwards compatible as well, and widescreen, which, hey, that's awesome. But, just looking back at it, I just think that the story of Max Payne is just a really well thought out one, and such an interesting kind of take on the entire genre, like the third person action adventure with like the bullet time, and it's kind of like in your face with the gore and the blood and guts, and it's just a really mature title, and I just like that. I think it's something that we kind of miss a little bit. It's kind of unapologetically awesome in that way. So yeah, Max Payne 2, phenomenal game. Up next is a really fun game, and it was a launch title for the original Xbox, Oddworld Munch's Odyssey. Now, it's funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. Back when I had the original PlayStation, I had Oddworld, and I remember my brother and I were just so enthralled with that game, and we played it all the time, and it was just such a big deal. And I think that really just goes to show that we kind of take things for granted nowadays, because like Oddworld in today's day and age is looked at more of like an indie title, right? And back then it was just like a big, massive title that, we just wanted to have and play it, So I think the fact that this game was a launch title, it's backwards compatible, It's fun. It's a good take. If you like Oddworld, which is like sort of, puzzly and, kind of strategic with the way you have to play it, then you're probably going to enjoy the game. Like I said, it doesn't help or hurt that it's backwards compatible. It looks pretty good. I wish it was widescreen, but it's not. But it's still a fun game to kind of get into and play, and I highly recommend it. Next up is one of my all-time favorite games, especially on the Xbox, and I believe it's still console exclusive to Xbox, is Toejam and Earl 3. Now, I absolutely adore this series. I remember loving Toejam and Earl 2 on the Sega Genesis, and so when Toejam and Earl 3 came out as an exclusive for Xbox, I knew I just had to have it. Unfortunately, it wasn't like a huge commercial success or anything like that, but that didn't stop me from really enjoying the game and playing it. And as you can see, it is like that classic Toejam and Earl kind of gameplay, and it looks pretty good too. I mean, again, that's one of the great things about a lot of these original Xbox games is that they're very much attractive looking games. Graphically they hold up well, and I just really feel like that's one of the bonuses of having a console that has some power to it and some heft behind it. So if you guys ever come across a copy of this, pick it up and see what you think. At the end of the day, the worst that can happen is you don't like it, but I feel like most people will probably enjoy this game regardless of your play style. If you follow my channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a big Simpsons fan, and so obviously Simpsons Road Rage is going to make the list. This is a multi-platform title, and no, it's not backwards compatible or anything. It's just a fun title, If you like the idea of Crazy Taxi with Simpsons characters, then this is going to be a game that you're going to want to pick up and play. It can be a little bit expensive depending on where you find it. I always still find games at, pawn shops, at, mom and pop shops. You can, pick them up at yard sales and things like that. I get games for all different types of prices and things, and even games that other people tell me, oh man, well that game's $100 game nowadays. It may be, depending on where you get it, but a lot of times you can still go out on the hunt and find, a lot of these games for a much cheaper price, and that's what I look to. Finding games for $5-10 here or there. Sometimes you might have to pay $20, but if it's a game that's, going for $100 on eBay and you pay $20, hey, that's quite a savings. 80% is nothing to sneeze at, but Road Rage is fantastic. Pick it up and play it.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
I like a wide variety of games, and Sid Meier's Pirates is right up there with one of my favorites. I can remember not really playing anything like this back on a console back in the day, and I just was really kind of enthralled with how fun this game was. And I realized now that it's much more of like a PC title, and I'm not a PC guy at all. I'm a console guy, so it's cool that they kind of put this version out for us console gamers, and realistically living the life of a pirate, going around attacking other ships, sort of the Assassin's Creed 4 before Assassin's Creed 4, but maybe not as good a story or anything like that. Still a fun time to be had, and just kind of a really interesting game to pick up and play. Obviously, they don't really make them like they used to. This is just such a really good game. Also, by the way, widescreen, as you can see, and backwards compatible. So a good amount of the games that I put in this video today are backwards compatible and look fantastic, even on, considering their original Xbox titles. So keep that in mind when you're looking to buy these games as well. I absolutely love this game. Last on my list, but certainly not least, Panzer Dragoon Orta. Now, when Sega stopped making hardware, when the Dreamcast came to an end, they made deals with Xbox to put several games on the platform exclusively, including like Shenmue 2, Panzer Dragoon Orta, and Jet Grind Radio. They made deals with Sony too, and there were certain games that were exclusive to PlayStation, but I always loved Panzer Dragoon Orta, so much so that I actually loved the spiritual successor, which was an Xbox One launch title called Crimson Dragon, even though it's not as good as this. But this is still a fun game to kind of get into and play, sort of an on-rails action shooter with dragons, and, it's just very colorful. Also, backwards compatible. So, again, closing out this video, I believe at least 10 of these games that I've showcased here are backwards compatible. So that's good to know. Such a fun console to collect for. Great games all around. Give them a try. I absolutely think Panzer Dragoon Orta is such an underrated gem of a game on the original Xbox. There's so many great games for the original Xbox, and 99% of the library is extremely cheap to pick up and buy. You know, there might be only 60 odd games that are backwards compatible with today's console, but that doesn't mean that you can't collect for it and enjoy the original hardware as long as you take care of it. Now, you can even play online through something called Insignia, which you can look that up. It's pretty interesting. It allows you to play a lot of original Xbox games with the multiplayer and things like that. It's not that hard to kind of get into, so I suggest you look that up if you're interested. But overall, I mean, obviously I could have mentioned stuff like Fable or Halo, and these are such great games, but there's a lot more to the library than just the games that you've heard of a million times before. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like. I'll catch you next time. Until then, game on, my friends.